Today we have Rob Anchondo, who is the Chief Technology Officer for Electronic Solutions at the newly minted Honeywell Aerospace. Rob, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have the chance to share some time with you.
And congrats on the big reveal. I got to go at least when they had the reveal for the community here. Governor and mayor, a lot of folks from the legislature and the city council were there. And what an amazing thing to witness, and what an incredible thing for our community.
Yeah, it was a really exciting time for Honeywell Aerospace employees as we start to become our own company. And I'm glad you got to experience that. There's employees still excited about the upcoming ringing of the bell, and they can't wait.
That's right.
Yeah, they can't wait to kind of unveil who we are.
Well, as a complete av geek, I was really excited about being able to actually see what we're doing here in Phoenix, but in a practical way. To actually see those applications on these airframes was really neat and really made me proud.
So you were able to get on one of the aircraft?
I did. I got mostly on the 757, which is kind of a rocket. I got to hang out with the pilot, which was, I'm sure he was less excited about all my questions than I was to give them, but it was a really neat thing to see, and that we're in so many aircraft around the world because of the work we're doing here.
Those are wonderful platforms and great experiences, not only to share with people to come and see our brand, but we actually use those for our young engineers. We put them on those planes. They get the context and the experience of what the product is they're working on. And not many companies can recruit by saying, I have a small fleet you can fly on.
Yeah, not bad. Well, for those folks who don't know you, Rob, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then maybe one thing that we wouldn't find on your bio that we would find interesting.
Sure. Well, I am born and raised a native of Arizona.
Okay.
I was born in Tucson. I grew up in the small town of Eloy, Arizona, little tiny town. My dad was the town pharmacist. And you wouldn't think that someone kind of so immersed in aerospace technology would come from that community, but my parents were incredibly strong advocates of our education. My brother and I, they were our biggest advocates and our biggest critics, and made sure that we found our way through the academic system. They were incredibly supportive and great role models for us.
And high expectations for you, it sounds
Very
like.
high expectations, yeah. So I loved to tinker. I loved to work on mechanical things. I wasn't artistic enough to do some of the other degrees that were interesting, and I knew that math and science was kind of where I was going to go, and Arizona State had a great program. So interestingly enough, and I am a very proud Sun Devil, my dad is a Wildcat.
Okay, mixed family.
Yep, mixed family. I grew up in the shadow of the U of A stadium, and I thought I was going to be a Wildcat, and it was one of the most important lessons my dad taught me. When I graduated from high school, I had 2 scholarship offers, one from U of A, one from ASU, and ASU's was a bit stronger. I didn't think it mattered. I was a Wildcat inside.
Yeah, it was irrelevant at that point.
It was irrelevant. I said, Dad, what do you think? And he said, son, I think you're going to be a Sun Devil.
Pack your bags.
So it was an incredibly valuable lesson about life that I learned at that point. And it's turned out great. Now, not for him. He's surrounded by Sun Devils now. My brother, both of our wives, and our kids. So,
well, good for us, though, that happened. And then how did you get to Honeywell?
So, I started my career at Hewlett Packard, and I was in northern Colorado. I was learning about how loud printers are and how to make them quiet, and I was working on an anechoic sound chamber, and it all sounded really cool. And candidly, there was snow on the Rockies in June. Born and raised in the Phoenix area, that wasn't really for me. So I started seeking out where I could find opportunity closer to home, closer to family, and Honeywell was hiring. They were hiring quite a bit at that time to support a lot of production work. I was fortunate enough to land a job at our space facility, and I started my career there literally as the second shift engineer. And to this day, I tell kind of funny stories about that. That's where I learned what an engineer was. I would be on there at night with highly talented technicians and inspectors and assemblers, and something would break, and we would stand around it and kind of stare at the problem. And I remember the very first time I said, okay, so what do we do? And they said, you're the engineer. You tell us.
So you were the guy.
And yeah, exactly. And at that point, kind of it sunk in that I really needed to remember what it was I learned in school.
This reminds me of that scene in Apollo 13 when the CO2 scrubbers had gone out and they had to just put a bunch of stuff together to create a new one. Does that ring a bell?
That absolutely rings a bell. And I don't think my experiences were quite as cinematic as that. But there have been quite a few where, you have to get creative. You have to understand what it's going to take to fix something. And that's where I cut my teeth. And I grew up on 59th and Union Hills learning about space hardware.
And so obviously now Chief Technology Officer, tell us something about you that we wouldn't know, we wouldn't find on your professional bio.
On the professional, well, I was passionate about music growing up. And so most people other than my family wouldn't know. As a child, I was actually in a mariachi group. It was, we were called Los Mariachitos, which meant, the little mariachis. And I grew up playing trumpet and guitar for probably the better part of a decade. Carried it on into college a little bit. Don't do it anymore. I don't think I could fit into the little shiny pants and wear that coat.
But I think that should go back on your bio. I think that's fantastic.
No, thank you.
So I have to ask, being from Eloy, one of the things that they're known for is skydiving.
They are.
And did you?
I have not done any skydiving. I spend too much time working on how to keep a plane in the air. I see no reason to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Okay.
They have a wonderful indoor skydiving capability, though. I've taken my daughter there. She was enjoying herself in that environment. But no, I haven't jumped out of a plane.
Okay, I had to check that out.
Yeah, fair question.
But the mariachis is fantastic. So we mentioned the community event, the rebrand, Honeywell Aerospace, such a huge deal. Tell us exactly what that really means for us here and what's the impact going to be economically?
Absolutely. For a very long time, Honeywell, the greater Honeywell Corporation, has had an incredible impact and a broad influence in a lot of industries. What we're going through now is an opportunity for Honeywell Aerospace to have that same impact, specifically in the aerospace community. For Arizona, what it means is now, one of the largest aerospace companies in the country will have its headquarters here in Phoenix. We're excited about that. We have thousands of employees, of which over 8,000 are going to be right here in the Valley. They're in Phoenix, they're in Glendale, they're in Tempe, working on an incredible array of products. When you think about our national and our global footprint, we're excited about all the different segments of the aerospace industry that we're going to get to kind of bring to bear and bring that recognition and that attention to the state. I'm not even sure people understand, how relevant we are in the aerospace industry.
As far as jobs are concerned, you mentioned 8,000. What is that going to mean in terms of net new hires in the Valley?
So we consistently partner with the universities to grow our footprint. We're already at that 8,000 number. We want to get to 10, longer term over our strategic plan. So, we're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of employees here in the Valley with, high-paying, valuable, career-minded opportunities. We're looking for engineers, we're looking for business majors, we're looking for scientists, for chemists. We span that spectrum. When I meet with the universities and they ask what kind of engineers we're hiring, we run the table. Electrical, mechanical, software, it doesn't matter. We're always looking for that in a way to impact the aerospace industry.
Well, and you're also walking the walk, and Honeywell's a little humble when it comes to this. We have, I think you probably know, we work with 21 high schools in the Valley, and in that vein, we have high school interns or internships available. And Honeywell was one of the first to raise their hand, maybe a little reluctantly. They took 3 about 4 years ago, and this year, they're going to take 60 high school interns.
Right.
And that's a game changer, Rob. And the fact that Honeywell's invested in those kids, it's a significant generational impact you're having. And it means a lot. And I think it says a lot about Honeywell.
Well, thank you. We're delighted to be part of that program. We've always had a strong relationship at the collegiate level. And we found that we needed to start building the interest in STEM in particular earlier in a student's educational experience. So we are thrilled we started with 3, admittedly.
Yeah.
Of those 60, my organization alone has a dozen that they may or may not want to go into engineering, but that's okay. We also have a track for manufacturing. And we see value in all of that. One of the greatest joys is when we hire someone, they end up going through that program. They might become an intern as a college student. And then they come back and work for us. And we even have a few legacy cases where they're, a second or third generation Honeyweller, and we're really proud of that.
The thing that I think is compelling too about that, and I don't want to take us off sidetrack, but we've had a few kids who maybe were on the bubble, and you all decided to take a chance on them, and it was the applied learning that opened up the world to them. Their eyes opened up, and all of a sudden it all made sense, and they stayed in school, they graduated, and they went on to get a career, which I think is really the goal here.
It's profound. We go into communities where they don't even think about degrees in the aerospace industry, right? It's not something that they see every day. So it is our kind of honor and privilege to be able to go out and open up the aperture, to kind of coin the phrase.
Absolutely. Well, so we had the rebrand. We have a new aerospace company here headquartered. Tremendous for Arizona. What are some of the things we're going to be involved in? I know I really want to talk about Artemis, and I know you probably have some Artemis stuff, but maybe give us a sense for the breadth of what Honeywell Aerospace is going to be doing nationally and globally.
The Honeywell Aerospace presence in industry covers literally anything that flies. So whether it's a small general aviation aircraft that a husband and wife own, to a business jet, to the commercial airliner you fly on, to a helicopter, to a satellite, to a missile. And now thinking, kind of looking forward, future state to what urban air mobility might bring us.
Is that a thing?
That is absolutely a thing. We are partnered with several companies. We are providing avionics, we're providing the controls, we're providing mechanical elements. One of our customers plans to fly at the Olympics in LA. If they do, I think that could be,
what a
game changer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, people don't understand when we talk about that, but think of Uber, but a short flight.
Wouldn't that be nice?
In highly congested cities, I think there's a real opportunity there.
Absolutely. So when all of us are getting out of Phoenix for our vacations, and we're on our American or Southwest flight, talk to us about some of the parts of that aircraft that are linked to Phoenix.
Nose to tail, whether it's mechanical or electrical, we are all over that aircraft. So from a mechanical sense, anything that moves the flaps and the actuators on an aircraft, we provide that. From an electrical sense, think of anything the pilot touches, whether it's the displays that he uses, the controls to fly the plane, and something we call, in the industry, it's known as an FMS, the flight management system. We provide all of that. We provide the antennas for them to communicate with the ground. More probably visible to the public, that made it to the media was we provide engines, and we also provide something called an APU, the auxiliary power unit. Think of an engine that's up in the tail of the airplane. Okay. Usually people see it and they wonder, why is there that extra engine up there? So that's normally used when you get on the plane. It keeps the lights on, it runs the air conditioner.
Keeps it cool for us.
Keeps it cool for us.
Okay.
But it has very profound impacts from a safety perspective.
Okay.
It's an additional source of energy. And I think the most famous story people hear about is when Captain Sully had to land that plane on the river, right?
Sure.
His main engines were taken out from bird strikes.
Right, they stopped running.
He had no other power source other than that auxiliary power unit. A Honeywell auxiliary power unit, I might say. And we're quite proud of the fact that it gave him enough power to land that plane, admittedly on the water, but
so
safe
he ran
enough.
Sort of the mechanicals and the instruments off of the APU?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and worthy of all the accolades that go into that side of the business. When you think, and there's things you probably don't think about that go into that aircraft as well that we're really proud of. Literally every 5 seconds, a plane lands with Honeywell landing gear. Anytime a plane lands and lands safely, it's because of a warning system we put in place, our enhanced ground proximity warning system. We love our acronyms. That one's called EGPWS.
That rolls right off the tongue.
It doesn't it? The inventor of that thing ended up getting, a medal presented to him from President Obama. So Don Bateman is like a giant among Honeywellers. He came up with that, and he wanted to make it available to the world because of its safety implications.
I was talking to our airport director. I think this is what he was referring to, so that we have transponders. Is that?
We do have transponders,
so that airplanes and ground-based vehicles know where each other are.
Sure. We have proximity sensors, we have transponders, we provide radios. Today, one of the most visible and important things we're working on, we call it SURF-A, stands for surface avoidance. So if you think about the tragedies that happened last year where a plane actually hit another plane on the runway, we make the software and the hardware that allows a pilot that extra 15 to 30 seconds so that he has a warning and he won't do that next time. We're quite proud of that. We make the things like synthetic vision that let them see through fog, see through the night, see through a dust.
When you're flying through a bunch of fog into San Francisco and wondering whether they can see or not.
They can absolutely.
They can see.
Yeah. So these things really are kind of foundational to what we believe our presence is on an aircraft. We're worried about safety. We're worried about autonomy. And interestingly enough, going forward, we're worried about electrification. So when you kind of look at those pieces of a stool, that props up what we're focused on technology-wise and what Arizona will be seeing from us.
So love to chat a little bit about that. We're getting to the point where people, I think, are getting more comfortable with electric vehicles. The range is there, and they can charge at home, and certainly in town, that's not a problem. But airplanes have always been something that seems to be sort of that next level that we haven't necessarily reached. Honeywell's looking at that.
So we absolutely participate at. By the way, I love electric cars. I own an electric car. Haven't been to a gas station in 4 years, and especially right now.
Just at home when you plug in.
That's right. But electrification for aircraft is a different struggle, right? The weight, the batteries, it's not going to get there yet. But there are hybrid solutions we look at. I would also say, we have partnered with companies, some small trainer aircraft that have a small radius, small quick routes. They're fully electric now. So this concept of electrification will be a journey. We provide a lot of product in that space, and we're partnering with aircraft manufacturers to see how even the normal products we make can be smaller, lighter, so that it provides less of a burden on the electrical offering.
Could this also be sort of local mobility type of vehicles?
Absolutely. I think that's probably a sweet spot, right? That little short journey back and forth.
Okay. Well, let's leave the Earth's surface and let's go to Artemis. I think we all needed this. I don't know that we expected to be so impacted by this mission around the moon that hadn't really been replicated since Apollo 8, I don't think. I think I heard that a lot of those components that they had on that flight were made here.
Absolutely. We're really proud of our space legacy. We've been on every single NASA manned mission that's ever existed. We're on roughly 80% of every other satellite that ever gets launched. And Artemis was kind of a pinnacle moment for us. I want to say we had something like 13 or 14 different product types on the capsule itself, ranging from the displays that the pilots used, the computer that controlled the capsule. Believe it or not, there were actuation systems behind that we call D-struts. Think of the shock absorber on your car, but this is a different mission, right? It has to make sure all of those expensive glass displays don't crack.
Sure, yeah, of course.
All of the super precise sensors that our company provides went in there. One of the data points for us was we had budgeted in certain number of course corrections so that they stayed in the right trajectory. The sensors we provided were so precise, they were able to eliminate some of the latter course corrections.
It's got to be great when you have a contract with NASA and you actually overperform.
Yes, it is.
Not bad.
That's good. That's a good data point to have. So I think one of the most exciting things was walking into like our cafeteria as they're watching the event, and it's filled with young engineers. And you're right, we couldn't have had this at a better moment in time.
Yeah.
Because I think it's brought a renewed excitement to the industry.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think about how long it's been since we've been to the moon, and now we're poised to go back, and to think that we had a part in that is really significant. What was maybe something about that mission that really caught your attention, or that was really special that we had a part in?
It's very humbling, but ironically enough, one of the things that we designed it in Glendale. We actually manufactured it at a sister facility. Was we did the hand controllers that the astronauts use to control the actual spacecraft. That was a really fun project for engineers because we got to work with astronauts. We got to help them figure out how to grab a hand controller with a big beefy glove on.
That's got to be tough, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And it sounds small, but we then got feedback through a lot of technical media that they were just tickled to have the precise control over the satellite, over the spacecraft that they had. And they gave great praise and kudos to the team for it. And it was one example that we could really point to and say, they couldn't have controlled that thing without us. There's a measure of pride that goes into that mission that kind of is difficult to describe.
So is it safe to assume that as we go to the next step and land on the moon, and that'll be a series of different companies as well, we'll have a hand in that technology?
We absolutely will. The products that we're already offering, we continue forward. We are chasing those contracts for lunar landers and lunar base. One of the other technologies we're really proud of is that for decades, we have made it possible for astronauts to breathe on the space station. We have a system called the Carbon Dioxide Removal Assembly, CDRA for short. CDRA is what takes the carbon dioxide out and prevents the astronauts from suffocating. Right. Well, when you're talking about Mars, by the way, that device is about the size of a queen mattress, okay? That's okay for the space station. When you're talking about Mars, it needs to be far more efficient.
Of course.
We have new technology and new engineers, and we have a variant of that now. Engineers aren't very creative with our names. That one's called CDROLS. But CDROLS, smaller, lighter, it's an incredible technology, and we really think will be incredibly impactful, making the mission safe for the astronauts. So we're really working with NASA right now, pushing that forward.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly an essential part of what would make that a successful venture.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you're thinking beyond the moon already. You're thinking about Mars, which is clearly going to be that next step.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really fun to see this awakening again in the space industry, not only from Artemis, but when you look at everything going on with kind of non-traditional companies in the industry and what they're able to do now, they've kind of disrupted things, right? But it's also allowed us to put a different foot forward. We're learning to build space products in quantity now, which was never a thing before. Right, but when you're talking about constellations,
that's true,
so that everyone can have connectivity and everyone can get instant, Netflix streaming wherever they are in the globe, that changes the game, and that's a different mission statement for us.
Yeah, I can imagine what the Apollo 11 guys would think of, for instance, just the connectivity that our astronauts have today.
Right,
that wasn't even a thing for them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a different game now. It boggles the mind to think about the technology that we're working with.
So what are the odds we get the Artemis crew to make a visit to Phoenix? I mean, you all kind of had a significant part of their mission.
Yeah, they're very generous with their time. I don't know about getting them, but I know we're trying. We have had astronauts visit our locations before. Interestingly enough, one of the recognitions they give out is called a Snoopy, a silver Snoopy.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
We've had a couple of people get silver Snoopies related to our work on space station and space shuttle. So you never know if one will show up, to do something like that. And by the way, they have profound impact in the community of students. You would think that I could influence what my kids grew up to be, and no such luck.
Your dad had better luck than you did.
I do have a daughter who's an engineer, and I thought it had something to do with me, but it really didn't. It had to do with the fact that I took her with me once to a judging competition where I was judging designs, and some astronauts showed up. They were the final judges. And she got to sit down, spend some quality time with a female astronaut, decided that engineering was where she wanted to be because, she saw what the potential could hold. So it's funny, but anytime they can come into town, it's a game changer.
Yeah, that would be huge. Well, maybe we can work on that together. I whenever we get to see Senator Kelly in DC, I want to talk about space, and sadly, that's not what he wants to talk about. He thinks I'm wasting his time, which is too bad. Beyond sort of the things we've been talking about, there's residential technology that you're involved in as well. Maybe some of the things outside of the aerospace things that we've been focused on that you're involved in.
So, when you think about Honeywell Aerospace, there's anything tip to tail on that aircraft, we do that. Most people don't realize, though, that we're also, incredibly proud of our longstanding history in the defense community. One of the logos we had for a long time was defending those who defend our nation. So the products we put that go on those satellites help point and steer them. We're incredibly proud about that. We're a center of excellence to the nation. No one else makes one particular product, control moment gyroscopes. No one else makes them to the level of precision we do. And we're proud that we provide as a service to our government. Think about the torque of a small block Chevy using less power than your hairdryer, right?
So when you think about the Honeywell, TSMC, it seems like there's a growing national security footprint here with our companies. It sounds like that the same thing would apply to Honeywell Aerospace.
There has been a distinct effort over the last several years to understand how we maintain, I would say, an in-source capability in certain technologies, right? We want to manage that. So one of our newest avionics platforms that we're putting out will be our first platform in a long time that we completely dual source. And we have our traditional global partners, but we also have an in-source capability to kind of give ourselves resiliency, right? There's nothing wrong with being able to be robust.
What are you excited about for the next 5 to 10 years as far as the mission that you're on with Honeywell?
There's a couple of things. I mentioned avionics, and most people don't really understand when I'm saying that, but we've had a really good run for the last 20 to 30 years with something in the business jet segment that is a beautiful cockpit, right? It's got rich displays and it's got a lot of great features for pilots. We call it Epic. Going forward, we're designing for that next generation for the next 30 years, and we call that Anthem. And it was an intentional name, right? This call to arms, everybody to come together, and that cockpit, brings in touch feature, it brings in connectivity, it brings in the pilot can do things in his hotel room before he ever gets on the plane. And so that kind of technology that makes what you're used to doing at home with your phone and your tablet now with a new generation of pilots, we're really excited about that. We're really excited about the richness behind it. And then, as I mentioned, when we talk about safety and we talk about autonomy and we talk about electrification, going forward, autonomy is going to be a big word everybody hears about, right? So, and that doesn't even necessarily mean autonomous flight, but it means much broader capability. And we've been doing that for a long time. I mentioned the FMS, the flight management system. There used to be 3 people in a commercial cockpit.
Right, yeah, right? Engineer.
That technology replaced the third person, right? And it made it possible for 2 people to fly that. Those are the kind of things we look forward to. And we've been doing it for a long time.
So changing the workload in the cockpit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we love those opportunities to kind of have an impact that can affect kind of the greater good. One of the things we're really profoundly proud of, you mentioned we were talking about space. I should have brought this up. We had someone from the Air Force come talk to us about GPS. Everybody knows GPS on their phone, on their car. They don't understand what went into that technology. And we're incredibly proud about the fact that we keep that constellation flying. The products we created allow the GPS constellation to stay up there. That technology has been acknowledged as something that changed the world.
And we take it for granted today.
We take it for granted.
Out on your phone.
Literally, when that general came to talk to us, he was in tears talking about the value, not only to us, but to the military. If you think about the original reason we had GPS, it was to help find pilots that were downed. Right. So those kind of things are
the iPhone has that, right?
Right. Those are anchors that people rally around and get excited about being part of our technology and our growth. And now that we are going to be Honeywell Aerospace, solely focused on aerospace, we're thrilled about what that means to us.
Since aerospace is terrestrial, I'm assuming that probably our kids will be working on, or your daughter will be working on a GPS system for Mars, because clearly there isn't one there. There doesn't exist, and you'd have to figure something else out. So it will have to be built.
Absolutely. it boggles the mind to think about the connectivity solutions that are yet to come.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned disruptors. Maybe look ahead and tell us what are some of the big disruptions we're going to see in flight in the next 10 or 15 years that you're seeing out there?
There's quite a bit of energy right now about how we reduce our carbon footprint. So that's going to be, I think, disruptive in the commercial aerospace and it is part of this electrification journey, but we also look at it as an opportunity to bring other technologies to bear. That's for sure. I think when we look at longer range flight, we look at, as I mentioned, urban air mobility and what that could mean. There's no doubt technology has to evolve with that. I think in the satellite and space arena, for sure, we're going to continue to see, a push for not only what we see astronauts doing, but what we can get capability-wise out of the satellites we have. Think about the disruption that went from direct TV to streaming Netflix, right? It changed an entire industry. If you follow global events, the other piece going on is what more and more can be done with drones, right? Drones, urban air mobility, things like that become very interesting technologies to be a part of. It also changes the way that we are going to participate in that space. We have a global footprint. We're proud of that. And we're going to leverage the global footprint to make sure, we're not only a big player here domestically, but that we're relevant in the entire industry.
It's exciting, no doubt. I think got an email last week from Walmart saying that we were within the range for their drone delivery.
Right.
It's incredible.
So think about that. Think about the fact that a drone can drop something off. And now, if that becomes kind of commonplace, there's a lot more technology has to go into it. It has to become resilient.
Yeah.
One of the disruptive things we've learned through global events, right, is GPS can be denied. We have an entire technology segment now on resilient navigation. How do you use constellations? How do you use other things in GPS denied environment, right? That's
incredible.
A few years ago, that wasn't going to be something you worried about. Sure. But now that even has relevance at home because, believe it or not, for $50 to $100, you can create your own kind of shield around your house that makes it tough for those Walmart drones, right? So we're talking to them now about how they maneuver that through your neighborhood.
Wow. Do you think we'll see space tourism in our life? You going to get up there? Would you go?
Would I go?
Yeah, would you go?
Wow, that's a great question. I struggle to get on a zip line, much less that. I don't know. It's certainly fascinating to me, and I think it's going to continue to be something that's a novelty, but it's also going to help push the boundaries of the industry.
So possibly it's going to be out there, and you maybe will go.
We'll go with that.
Okay, but I'm assuming you're flying commercial. You have so much of that aircraft that's attributed to you. Nervous flyer?
I am not a nervous flyer. I take great comfort in the fact that I know what it takes to put hardware on an aircraft. And I mentioned this to my wife one time when she started flying and she was a nervous flyer. And I said, look, if the screen starts to blink, they don't just flick it and we go.
Control.
That's not how it works. Our products literally take a hit by a lightning bolt. I mean, we put things through the most.
You have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happened.
That's what happens. So very rigorous requirements go into our products. We're incredibly proud of it. I know what it takes to make an aircraft safe. I'm still not sure I'd go on the space tourism thing yet, but commercial flight, I do it all the time.
Well, you mentioned a lot about the folks at Honeywell being proud, and I think you're very humble. What are you most proud of?
I'm fortunate to have been just a small player in this journey. And I'm really proud about the fact that along the way, I think I've become a leader that people want to follow. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but I know where they reside. And I'm proud of the fact that people embrace me and in these various technologies. Honeywell's a big corporation, and I've had a chance to do mechanical work. I've had a chance to work on apps and applications. Ironically enough, my daughter raises her eyebrows when she sees they let me run the apps group for a while. And now I'm blessed enough to run the largest electrical systems group in their history as an old mechanical engineer. And I think it's a testament to the people I work with. And it's a blessing because we've stood on the shoulders of giants this entire way.
Well, it's easy to see why folks want to follow you. It's clear that you're a good leader and people learn under you and feel like they have a voice.
Absolutely. If nothing else, I want to make sure that the organization feels heard and that they have an advocate. It's that balance between an advocate of the employee and a steward of the company. And I think I do it all right.
Well, I think you do. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending so much time with us. We're going to do a quick lightning round with you.
Oh boy.
This is really easy. All right, we're going to start with, what was your first job? Not out of college, but just a non-professional job.
My first job was I worked for an electrician, and I was the kid they sent scurrying up into the attic, routing the wire, back and forth. And I was that guy. I learned a ton.
Well, okay, tell us what you learned.
Well, I learned how to wire, and to this day, I feel comfortable working on, simple things at home. I learned I don't like heights.
And hence the space tourism.
That's right. I don't want to be the guy in the rafters if I can avoid it. I learned an appreciation for hard work. The man that hired me and the team I worked with were an incredible group. And I was blessed to learn from them. And I realized that I really wanted to stay in school.
Yeah. Well, that was instructive. All right. This is a two-parter. Usually it's just one, but what was your first concert?
My first concert was Sting from The Police. Yes.
That's solid. Okay. But usually I don't get to ask this question, but with you, I do. Favorite mariachi song?
Volver, volver, volver.
Oh, that was the right answer. Excellent. 100%. And then finally, first car.
My first car was a 1966 Mustang. Yes, I was a lucky duck.
You were.
My dad found a used Mustang. And to this day, he tells me if he could, he would have lit that car on fire and pushed it into the desert.
What did you do to it?
It was a horribly running vehicle. It was older than I was probably. And so, but it was a beautiful car. And I will tell you to this day, I don't regret it because it's how I met my wife. We went on a date. The car died. It was not intentional.
Did she think it was?
She did think it was. And then she helped me push that car to a gas station. And I came home and told my dad this story, and he said, "You need to marry that girl." And I did, and she's been pushing me and my cars around ever since.
Well, you know what? What a perfect way to end this podcast. And yeah, thank God for bad running cars when you don't know enough, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Thanks for taking so much time with us, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Business Phoenix. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode. We're glad that you could join us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.